Chapter 1. The Military Mystery, 1946 to 1947. Imagine a place the size of America, a place no one has ever seen. Now imagine that place isn't on another planet, but here. In 1954, the most decorated American admiral, Richard Byrd, appeared on national television and uttered a sentence that still chills the blood today. There is land beyond the pole, the center of the great unknown.
But strangely enough, there's left in the world today an area as big as the United States that's never been seen by a human being. And that's beyond the pole, on the other side of the South Pole, from Middle America.
Let's rewind to 1946. World War II is over, but the U.S. military is not resting. Just 1 year after the war ended, while the world was in ruins and bankruptcy, the U.S. sent a massive military fleet to Antarctica. Officially, a scientific expedition. Unofficially, 4,700 troops, 13 ships, including the aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea, destroyers, a submarine, and 33 aircraft. The official goal: training personnel and testing equipment in cold conditions and mapping the coast. The question everyone asks: why send a war fleet to map ice? Who sends such a force to count penguins? The mission was supposed to last 6 to 8 months. However, it was abruptly aborted after only a few weeks. The fleet returned home with casualties. Many researchers have mentioned that the fleet lost 3 aircraft, though the U.S. government claims this is untrue. 1 plane was lost, crashing on Thurston Island. Of the 9 crew members, 3 died: Wendell Henderson, Frederick Williams, and Maxwell Lopez. And 6 survived, only to be rescued 13 days later. While the U.S. government officially claims a blizzard downed the plane, alleged secret reports from Soviet intelligence paint a different picture. They speak of Operation Highjump as the first war between humans and UFOs. They mention discs emerging from the ice, dozens of destroyed aircraft, and Admiral Byrd's panic-stricken retreat months ahead of schedule. Was Byrd's warning about an enemy flying pole to pole actually an admission of defeat? In an interview published on March 5, 1947, in the Chilean newspaper El Mercurio, Byrd spoke to Lee Van Atta, a journalist embedded with the expedition. According to the article, Byrd warned of a new strategic reality. He stated, "I don't want to scare anyone needlessly, but it is a bitter reality that in case of a new war, the continental United States would be attacked by flying objects which could fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. The time when we could count on huge distances of oceans as a protective belt is gone." Did he mean the Soviet MiGs of the future, or something he saw in the Antarctic ice? That is what keeps this story alive today. Think about this for a second. The 1950s were the peak of the Cold War. America and the Soviet Union were mortal enemies ready to destroy the world with nuclear weapons. They agreed on absolutely nothing. Yet, in 1959, immediately after the secret operations, they both signed the Antarctic Treaty, banning private exploration, military presence, and claiming of land. It is the only piece of land on Earth that every nation agrees to leave alone. Why? Nations fight wars over sand in a desert. Why did they all suddenly agree to lock up a continent the size of America? You don't lock up ice and penguins with international treaties. You lock up secrets that are too big for one nation to handle. Chapter 2. Silencing the Witness. Now open your eyes, because what you are about to hear is very strange and historically more than accurate. What adds weight to this entire story is the alleged suicide of U.S. Secretary of the Navy, James Forrestal. As the man who sent Byrd to Antarctica, Forrestal knew everything about the mission and likely the truth about the fleet's losses and what they found there. When Admiral Byrd returned, he submitted all his reports and findings to the Secretary of the Navy. After learning this, Forrestal changed completely. It is said that this knowledge haunted him. It should be noted that Forrestal was on duty in 1947 when the Roswell incident occurred. He was allegedly a member of the secret group Majestic 12, a group managing extraterrestrial affairs, the existence of which the U.S. government recently admitted. But on May 22, 1949, Forrestal was found dead. He fell from the 16th floor of the Bethesda Naval Hospital. He was found on a lower roof in his pajamas, with a bathrobe sash tied tightly around his neck. According to official reports, Forrestal committed suicide due to severe depression and psychosis. They claimed he cracked under the pressure of the job and the start of the Cold War. Yet, weeks before his death, Forrestal claimed he was being followed, his phone tapped, and that Russian and Israeli agents were everywhere. Doctors diagnosed him with involutional melancholia, a severe form of depression, and placed him on the 16th floor, which is extremely odd for a suicidal patient. The official story says that night, while the guard wasn't looking, he made a noose from the sash, tied it to a radiator, and jumped. The sash broke, and he fell to his death. However, we must note, no fingerprints were found on the window glass. The sash around his neck was tied in a tight knot, which is difficult to do to oneself before jumping unless one was hanged. James Forrestal wrote a diary. After his death, the White House confiscated his personal diary for a year. When returned to the family, researchers noticed key parts were missing or pages altered. The family stated they never learned exactly what he wrote in the days surrounding Operation Highjump or Roswell. It is believed Forrestal didn't go mad, but was under immense stress carrying the world's biggest secrets, including the truth about Antarctica, and was eliminated as a security risk. Imagine the Secretary of Defense coming out and saying, "We saw UFOs in Antarctica." If the government already has a paper saying he is insane, no one would believe him. The period of his insanity lasted only 2 or 3 months before his death. Next to his body, no classic suicide note was found. Instead, a paper was found on his desk where he was transcribing poetry, verses from Sophocles' tragedy Ajax. The poem is about a Greek hero who, after the Trojan War, goes mad, is disgraced, and falls on his own sword, a chilling parallel to Forrestal. But pay attention to this key detail. Forrestal stopped writing in the middle of a word. The last word was night, but he wrote only nigh, and stopped. If someone plans to jump out a window, why transcribe ancient poetry and stop mid-word? Theorists claim he was interrupted, that someone entered the room. That night, the guard assigned to sit outside his door to prevent suicide left his post just before the fall. This creates a picture of a man who knew the secrets of his time, wanted to speak, and was silenced. Remember, before this, James Forrestal was considered one of the sharpest minds in Washington. Such a mind doesn't go crazy in 2 months. His death is often cited as the first case of being suicided. Chapter 3. The Secret Diary, Truth or Fiction. 40 years after Byrd's death, in 1990, the so-called Secret Diary of Admiral Byrd appeared. Published by the Hollow Earth Society, they claimed it was smuggled from Byrd's archive, but never produced the original manuscript for analysis. It exists only as text. The diary writes of crystal cities, flying saucers, the Aryan race, and Anunnaki. Comparing it to Byrd's real archives at Ohio University, the difference is stark. Byrd writes like a soldier, technical, restrained, factual. The Secret Diary is flowery and emotional, resembling 1950s pulp sci-fi. It uses terms like Flugelrad, associated with Nazi UFO theories invented in the 70s. Most importantly, the diary starts on February 19, 1947, claiming Byrd entered the Hollow Earth, while records show that on that day he was aboard his ship having dinner. Everything indicates the Secret Diary is a fabrication, but that doesn't mean something isn't wrong in Antarctica. Chapter 4. Attacking the Sky, Operations Argus and Fishbowl. Proof that something is definitely wrong is found in Operation Argus. A fleet of 9 ships and 4,500 men was sent down in total silence, officially revealed only when the New York Times broke the story a year later. Believe it or not, the U.S. military fired nuclear bombs directly into the sky above Antarctica. It was the only secret series of atmospheric nuclear tests in history. They launched 3 nuclear warheads, W-25, directly into space, the exosphere. They wanted to test the Christophilus effect, creating an artificial radiation shield. Why target a specific altitude right above us? Many believed they were trying to break the dome, firmament. When the bombs exploded, They created artificial auroras described by sailors as the end of the world or the sky on fire. Then came Operation Fishbowl, a strange name for a military test, isn't it? Unless we live in one. They detonated a 1.4 megaton thermonuclear bomb, 100 times stronger than Hiroshima, at an altitude of 400 kilometers above the Pacific. The explosion turned night into day in Hawaii. Footage shows fire hitting an invisible barrier and spreading like water on glass. Were they trying to break the cage we live in? And what happened when the sky hit back? And look at the names. The umbrella project for these nuke tests was called Operation Dominic. In Latin, Dominic means of the Lord. Why name a nuclear test of the Lord? Because they weren't testing bombs. They were attacking the throne of God. Why bombard the sky? These questions still remain a mystery. Were they trying to break the dome with nukes? Are we just fish trying to break the glass of our aquarium? Chapter 5. The Lost Map and the Hidden World. Kobayashi. In 1907, the so-called Kobayashi map appeared in the Hawaiian Gazette. The article was titled, "Is This Map of the World Made 10 Centuries Ago?" It claimed a Japanese surgeon, Dr. Kobayashi, found the map in an old Buddhist temple. The map depicts the Earth as a disk, or azimuthal projection, with the North Pole in the center. But here is the most interesting part. It shows landmasses beyond what we know as Antarctica. Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a ball, but an ice ring surrounding the known continents. Beyond that ring, extra continents are drawn, lands unknown today. Does this map shape sound familiar? It should. Look at the logo of the United Nations. It is the exact same map, an azimuthal equidistant projection centered on the North Pole, surrounded by olive branches. Or are those branches meant to represent the ice ring holding it all together? Why would the organization that claims to represent the whole globe use a flat Earth map as its official symbol? They aren't hiding the truth. They are hiding it in plain sight. They use the real map for navigation and control, while giving us the globe in classrooms. If we view the Kobayashi map as potential truth, here is how things align mathematically and logically in ways the mainstream model cannot easily explain. First, the geometric paradox of the southern hemisphere. The official globe model says Earth is widest at the equator, 40,000 kilometers. As you go south, the parallels narrow. By 60 degrees south latitude, the circumference should be half that. The Kobayashi disk model suggests Earth is centered on the north. The equator is a ring. As you go south, towards the outer edge, the circles don't narrow, they expand. The logical test. If Earth is a ball, travel around Antarctica should be short. In practice, flight routes in the southern hemisphere, from South America to Australia, take suspiciously long times, or go via the north to Dubai or USA. If the Kobayashi map is true, the distance between southern continents is huge because they are on the outer edge of the disk. This explains why there are few direct flights across the Southern Ocean. The distance is physically too great. And here is the smoking gun. Take a look at the flight path of this plane flying from Toronto to Hong Kong, for example. What do you notice? You can clearly see that the plane travels over the North Pole, rather than across the Atlantic or Pacific Ocean, which would seem much more logical. This only makes sense if it is flying according to the so-called Kobayashi map. Their satellites see everything at every moment. But we have something they can't erase. We have memories. We remember the time just 5 or 10 years ago. I remember what many of you saw and what they tried to erase from history today. Whoever opened the radar back then and looked at the southern hemisphere, what would you see? Nothing. Zero planes, empty ocean. Between Australia and South America, dark. Between Sydney and Africa, total silence. You remember? We showed this glitch to everyone we knew. It was mind-blowing. Back then, you didn't need to be a conspiracy theorist to realize something was wrong. But look today. Take your phone now, in this moment. Open the radar. What do you see? The southern hemisphere is suddenly alive. This is exactly what causes even greater doubt, if not the greatest. Planes now neatly fly lines that 10 years ago didn't exist in the south. Qantas, LATAM, South African Airways. Everyone is there. What's the official story? They say these flights always existed. Unbelievable. Even though we all remember differently. Did they insert these flights into the system just to convince you that the world is how they draw it? 10 years ago, they didn't have to lie because nobody was looking at the sky. Today, when we all look, they had to program the sky. Physics dictates that water always seeks its level and must have a container. On a ball, water curves around the surface, held by gravity, a force never proven as a quantum particle, only a theoretical concept. Even Nikola Tesla called the connection between gravity and curved space the greatest nonsense ever heard. According to Tesla, he believed that gravitational effects could be explained through electromagnetic interactions rather than the curvature of spacetime or the attraction of mass. On the Kobayashi map, Antarctica is a ring. In physics, this is a basin. If water stands flat, as measured by lasers, it must have a rim holding it. The ice wall is the physical wall of the container. But what is beyond? Just as bees build honeycombs, it is logical our basin borders other basins. The map shows exactly that, other landmasses separated by ice, a modular system. Chapter 6. The Problem of Geometry, Stars and Light. Skeptics have a strong argument. How do you explain the movement of southern stars on a flat Earth? If we all look south from different places, we look in different directions. How do we see the same star? Skeptics assume light travels straight and there is only one fixed pole. In a world ruled by electromagnetism and ether, light bends like a river. People in the south don't look at a physical object billions of kilometers away. They see a local manifestation of light brought there by magnetic current. It sounds crazy. Think of this. It's like saying 3 men in 3 different rooms can't watch the same TV channel because they aren't looking in the same direction. They can, because they aren't looking at the source. They are looking at the signal reaching them. Interestingly, in the late 19th century, physicists Michelson and Morley tried to measure Earth's motion through the ether. Result, they measured 0. No motion detected. Instead of concluding, Earth doesn't move, Einstein developed relativity to explain why we can't feel the motion. But what if the map of the hidden world isn't locked in a library? What if it is hanging right above our heads? Think about Nikola Tesla's claim that the moon is not a solid rock, but plasma. Now, look at the full moon. Really look at it. Some researchers have taken the image of the moon, flipped it like a mirror, and laid it over the Earth. The dark spots, the Maria, match our continents perfectly. But here is the chilling part. The moon shows more land. It shows the continents we know, and it shows the vast terra firma extending far beyond our ice ring. Maybe we haven't gone to the moon because the moon isn't a place. Maybe it is a reflection, a cosmic mirror on the dome showing us exactly what our entire realm looks like. We are staring at the map of the great Earth every single night, and they told us it was just a rock. But why hide the land beyond the wall? Here we enter the logic of power. Our economic system is based on scarcity. Land is expensive because it is limited. Resources are expensive because they are running out. Hypothesis. If the Kobayashi map is true and there are continents 10 times larger beyond the ice, real estate value in New York drops to 0. The price of oil and diamonds drops to 0. The banking system collapses. Conclusion. Hiding these lands isn't a scientific error. It's the greatest business move in history. The elite created an artificial zoo where we believe we are isolated, fighting for crumbs, while the real territory is infinite. The spherical model rests on 3 pillars: gravity, refraction, and relativity. If you remove these theoretical patches, our sensory and engineering experience screams that Earth is stationary and flat. The spherical model demands you believe theories despite what you see. The flat model asks you to believe what you see, despite theories. Chapter 7. Historical Witnesses. Cook, Britannica, Pickard. But here is a piece of data that will confuse you completely. The voyages of Captain Cook. In the late 18th century, Cook tried to circumnavigate Antarctica to find an inlet. How long did it take him? 3 years and 8 days. He covered over 60,000 miles, 96,000 kilometers, sailing along the ice. The math problem. The equator is 40,000 kilometers. Antarctica, on a globe, should be much smaller. 15,000 to 20,000 kilometers. How did Cook sail 60,000 miles around a continent that should be only 20,000 kilometers wide? The only explanation: he wasn't sailing around an island. He was sailing along the inner edge of the outer ring. While mainstreamers argue he zigzagged back and forth to Pacific islands, Cook's journals note he sailed along the ice barrier for thousands of miles seeking an entrance but never found one. He described it as an endless wall, 50 to 100 meters high. On a globe, the coast is irregular. Cook described a perfect barrier. But if you think the ice has been there for millions of years, you need to explain the Piri Reis map of 1513. This wasn't drawn by a fantasy writer. Piri Reis was a legendary Grand Admiral of the Ottoman Empire, a man of science and war whose maps were used to navigate empires. He drew a detailed map of the world, including the coastline of Antarctica, Queen Maud Land, 300 years before Antarctica was officially discovered. And this document is real. It is not an internet hoax. It is physically kept in the Topkapi Palace Museum in Istanbul today. But here is the terrifying part. He didn't draw ice. He drew mountains, rivers, and vegetation. He drew a habitable land connected to South America. Official history says Antarctica has been frozen for 30 million years. This map proves that someone saw it green and alive not so long ago. If the map is real, then the geology books are lying. Is the ice a permanent feature, or is it a recent mechanism, a camouflage activated to close the gate? There is more. Before the Antarctic Treaty, 1959, the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1958 edition, contained a strange entry under Antarctica. It mentioned flights proving inland areas to be featureless with a dome 13,000 feet high at 80 degrees south. It suggests explorers found a physical dome. After 1959, these descriptions vanished from books. And let's not forget Auguste Piccard. Before NASA, he was the first man to reach the stratosphere, 1931. He described Earth. It seemed a flat disk with upturned edge. He had no reason to lie. Finally, consider the sun's reflection on water. On a curved surface, a light source creates a point of reflection. But on water, we see a long, straight path of light leading to our feet. This glitter path is physically possible only on a flat surface. The water proves it isn't curved. Chapter 8. The Tombstone and the Forbidden Zone. Take a deep breath. We know how this sounds. Right now, your mind is fighting this information because it goes against decades of programming. It feels like madness, but ask yourself a simple question. Which requires more blind faith? Believing in a spinning ball flying through an infinite vacuum that you have never seen or felt? Or believing your own eyes when you see flat water, a level horizon, and stars that follow patterns, not chaos? If you are ready to let go of the illusion, here is the final nail in the coffin. For the end, an undeniable fact carved in stone. Wernher von Braun, the Nazi scientist who became the father of NASA, has no rockets or formulas on his tombstone. Just his name and a reference to Psalms 19:1. The heavens are telling the glory of God and the firmament proclaims his handiwork. The man who supposedly sent humans to infinite space chose a verse about the firmament, the dome, for his final message. If he knew rockets couldn't exit because of the dome, and if that dome touches down in Antarctica, his message is an admission. We didn't go up, we hit the ceiling. And here is a logistical fact they can't hide. NASA is the world's largest consumer of helium. They say it's for rockets, but helium is for balloons. What if satellites don't exist? What if GPS and internet come from high-altitude balloons floating under the dome? It explains why satellites often crash in Brazil looking exactly like balloons. They are keeping the illusion of space alive with helium. Is Antarctica just the fence separating us from the rest of the universe? Rewind to the present. Antarctica is still forbidden. But 2016 was different. The world's most powerful people rushed south. Russian Patriarch Kirill went to bless the ice. Buzz Aldrin was medically evacuated after allegedly tweeting a picture of a pyramid saying, "We are all in danger. It is evil itself." John Kerry went there on U.S. Election Day. What did they have to see? Look at the Strava heat map showing soldiers running in circles in the middle of nowhere. Look at Google Earth's censored holes and pyramidal mountains. Listen to the bloop, an organic sound from the deep ocean too loud to be an animal. You might think, I'll go check. The Antarctic Treaty isn't guarded by penguins, it's guarded by warships. The question isn't what is there, the question is, why won't they let us see? Does the ice protect us from what is outside, or is the wall there to keep us inside? Don't believe me? Just ask Jarl Andhøy. In 2011, this Norwegian explorer tried to sail to Antarctica without permission on his boat, the Berserk. He wasn't carrying weapons, he was carrying supplies. Upon arriving at the Antarctic coast, Andhøy and a young expedition member disembarked to explore the terrain, leaving the other 3 on board. It was supposed to be a short trip, but by the time they looked back, the impossible had happened. The ship and its crew had vanished into thin air. He was rescued, but he refused to abandon the search for his crew. When he returned a second time to find them, he was hunted by the navies of New Zealand and Chile, tracked by satellites, and treated like a terrorist. Why? Because he tried to cross the line without the permit to see the truth. Don't you see that Roswell and Highjump both happened in 1947? Maybe we provoked unknown entities that struck back the same year. The biggest secret might not be what is behind the ice, but where are we? Maybe all these anomalies indicate we don't live on a planet. The word planet comes from planets, wanderer. We live on a plane. They told us the truth through language, but hid the meaning through pictures of balls in classrooms. After everything you've seen, you decide. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button and join us for more.